You are listening to Beyond the Verse, a Star Citizen podcast. A show dedicated to Cloud Imperium games, Star Citizen, and Squadron 42. Whether you fight, explore, unite, and or trade, we bring you news, updates, interviews, reviews, and analysis. So sit back, relax, grab yourself a pour of Radegast, and join us as we go Beyond the Verse.
Launch sequence activated.
Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 28 of Beyond the Verse Star Citizen podcast. I am your host, Solus, and tonight we are naming this episode The Ticket. I think for obvious reasons, but this last week we had two major drops with CitizenCon and, of course, the F8C Lightning, both of which involve tickets. So there you go. That's how my brain works. Welcome in. Thank you for letting us into your place of your car, your workout, however you're listening to this podcast. And if you're over on YouTube, you get to see my ugly mug. And you get to see the ugly mugs of our special guests today from the Starjump org, both Grim and Ender. So let's welcome Grim and Ender. How you doing, gentlemen?
Doing wonderful. How are you?
Yeah, appreciate the invite.
Absolutely. There's many reasons why I had y'all join us for this episode, but I think the most obvious is this brand new ship, the F8C Lightning. And when I think ship, I think of the Fleet Viewer, and when I think of Fleet Viewer, there you are. So,
oh, good.
Yeah, what's everybody
impact?
you absolutely have, and we'll get into a little bit about that here in a couple of seconds. Actually, let's get into it right now. I think it's a great segue. When I joined Star Citizen, this is last year around Invictus 2952. One of the very first tools that was introduced to me was the Fleet Viewer. It's this idea, and I'm gonna insult you all by giving a little summary, but World of Warcraft came out with the Armory. It was something that you could download onto your phone, and when you're not in game, I see you laughing, Ender.
There's a reason. I'll get into why in a minute.
I would love to hear it.
We're
but like
big Warcraft players, so
we are.
There you go. But that was like the coolest thing for me as a gamer is I didn't have to be in game to see my character, to share my character. And so I started falling in love with external tools, things that you could do outside of the game. So I told Conniff, episode 1, y'all recognize Conniff, he was a guest speaker. We talked about the Pledge Store and all things Star Citizen and how sexy that website is and all the things you can do with Galactopedia and the star map, etc. And then he introduced me to the Fleet Viewer. So I'm going to shut up for a couple of seconds. What is the Fleet Viewer, and why should everybody, if you don't already know, why should everybody know about the Fleet Viewer?
Grim, do you want your answer or my answer first?
Let's go with your answer first, and then I'll follow on mine.
The Fleet Viewer is a tool born of a much larger idea that is still definitely an idea, but it was a tool that Grim put together in a very, very beautiful way with the team at Starlit and VMXEO helping out quite a bit and me patting them all on the back and saying good job because I didn't have a skill set that was going to be good for Fleet Viewer except for being able to shout out every time we talked about it. But the idea was brought together of a high fidelity, usable Fleet Viewer that wasn't a competition because actually, and Grim will say it too, we are not in competition with any other Fleet Viewers. In fact, I think you should use them both. I do. But
there's several out there, and we're friends with them. Yeah. Yep.
But the idea was to bring 2D ships into a fleet viewer. You could put your fleet together and really do something with it. And I think Grim and Starlet and Fee, I mean, they all knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, I mean, it was born out of accident because I guess to understand how Fleet Viewer came to be and sort of what it is, it sort of goes back to what Star Jump started off as, which was it was always envisioned to be sort of a creative collective, right? We didn't want to be like a one content creator where, you know, it's all about that person. This was more of a collective, and we knew we would be adding people to that collective over time, people that had skill sets or interesting ideas even that we wanted to be associated with, so they sort of come under the umbrella. Well, one of the first projects we did were the Star Jump cinematics. That was something that I essentially did all myself, although Ender was a huge help in helping propagate that out to the community in terms of just a, you know, being he's shaking his head, but being a hype man, because as you know, it's one thing to do the thing, but then you have to make sure people know about you doing it. But so I did these cinematics, and I had to build these ships in 3D, and a lot of these ships were concept ships, so people had never seen them fully textured. And then it was just one day I was looking at all the ships I had, and I said, you know what, I've got about 60 ships built. What would it take to build out all the ships and then program that into something that people could view their fleets? And I used Starship 42 a lot, which is the 3D kind of ship fleet viewer, which is a great tool as well, and I really enjoyed it. But there were some things about it that were problematic, especially if you had large fleets. And I thought, well, we could do it a little bit differently, and still accomplish the fleet viewer goals, but maybe we have different technical goals than Starship 42. And Lunfasy over there is a friend of mine and a great dude, but they rely obviously on full 3D camera control, but low fidelity, right? And that's a great thing to have. I love spinning around my ships and all that stuff. Where we went the opposite direction, which was very little camera control but extremely high fidelity, right? So there's trade-offs, and so the tool was kind of born out of that. And like Ender said, there was a much bigger idea there. Actually, originally there was a much bigger and broader concept for it was sort of an app / website or whatever, and Fleet Viewer is kind of part of that, but I would say it's like 20% of it, of the original idea. And now we're exploring how to bring the other parts of that online in a different way. So primarily it's Star Jump. We're always looking on like how to do unique projects that no one else is doing, you know what I mean? And it's not that we have anything against, you know, someone reading the news that week. It's just there's so many people that do that well that we're like, what can we offer that's different, right? So we find these tools and stuff to be our kind of sweet spot. The only issue with those tools is it takes a lot of time to create them. You know, they're not something you can bang out every week.
I can imagine. And when you say you're looking to ways to improve, it means you're onto something. It means you're growing your product. Are you suggesting that there's something in the pipeline? I tend to peek up whenever I hear those things.
There's definitely something in the pipeline. We have an active working. We have a lot of stuff on the back end that's already been developed that is, you know, needing work to sort of fully build it out. But the next project is already fully concepted, and you know, we want a project after that and a project after that. We want to constantly creating new tools, and as the game matures, and especially as when the game gets to a point where real add-ons can be created for the game and stuff, I could see us doing add-ons and mods and stuff like that, you know what I mean?
Sure.
I think ultimately though our goal is to always create content for the Star Citizen community, but do it in a unique way. That's kind of a unique way and at a high quality bar. Those are kind of the ethos we started Star Jump on. So whether it's Fleet Viewer, which we are always trying to improve, and we're always monitoring metrics. We take bug reports and stuff, and you know, we do our updates every time CitizenCon or Invictus or something rolls around. So whenever you do projects like this, it's not about just creating it, but you have to create a sustainable update, path for its future, so that you don't just abandon the project in 6 months. So there's a lot of thought that goes into it, but we're always thinking about how to improve the experience, right? Whether it's Fleet Viewer or the next project,
Yeah, if you ask me, you nailed it. I mean, just a personal fan of the product. I think you absolutely nailed it. And the backgrounds you can set, behind your shit. Just all of it is just user friendly. It's very easy. I'm about to show a kind of a how to here in a little bit for those of you on YouTube, but it's very intuitive, and I think it's a very good product. Ender, if I were to ask you who the audience is, who needs Fleet Viewer? What is the target audience, and how is it best used by the community?
I mean, anybody that plays Star Citizen, anybody that has a ship or a list of ships that they want, or just a ship they like looking at, to be honest with you, that's the target audience. That's who needs it. I think that even if you're showing the game off, it's a really good way of showing people stuff about the game.
Yep.
Without having to go to YouTube and stuff like that. You can just pop it up, load up your ships, and go, look, this is it. But then then you can load all the ships. There's all this coming, to talk about what the project is.
Yeah.
But mostly it's really good for showing off fleets and
all the fleet pics, right?
Naming your ships.
And yeah,
absolutely.
And there's another aspect to it as well, in that the ships in Star Citizen are the player's vehicle, and I'm using that word in a generic way. Yeah. Are the player's vehicle for operating within this verse, not in terms of just getting from A to B, but in terms of your career paths, your what you do on a nightly basis. So whether it's you're going to get out and just fly around, or you're going to go down to the landing zone or whatever, it's always structured around ships. So the ships are really everything in this game. They are what tap into the gameplay loop. So you may say, well, I'm not big on ships, but I want to do mining. Well, you're going to do mining in a ship or a vehicle. So those things are important. And so one thing I think Fleet Viewer does communicate, probably better than how I just said it, is that it communicates the scope of the game, right? So it communicates all the things we're going to be able to do. It communicates the scope of scale, right? So the very tiny, all the way from the mule to the retribution. And that's not, and that stuff isn't meaningless. If you look at gaming today, whether it's an FPS game like Call of Duty, you're going to have people asking, how many maps are there? How many weapons are there? Is there weapon customization? People are looking for depth. They're looking for expansiveness. If it's Starfield, people are asking how many systems can you explore? Right. Is the shipbuilding infinite? Whether people actually ever experience all that, they want to know it's all there, right? Because it makes them feel like they're a part of something bigger.
Absolutely.
And I think that's something Fleet Viewer does, is it shows you the scope of the game. It shows you. You can easily see by populating a whole bunch of ships down, you get a wide cross section of information. You get a good idea of how many manufacturers are in game. You get a window into there being alien races in game. Yep. You get a window into all the different career paths, salvage, mining, this and that. And then there's also the scale thing, like I just said, Fury to Retribution. So just from looking at ships, you get a lot of information about this game.
Yeah.
Even if you never went to the website, right? So I think that's one reason people like Fleet Viewers. And then the other reason is just that what you said about these tools, right? There's a game outside of a game going on with some of the best games, and sometimes that's done in different ways. One game myself and Endo used to play pretty heavily was Arma 3. And while Arma 3... I wouldn't say it's a tools thing. Arma 3 has an extremely vibrant mod community, right? And the mods, playing Arma 3 modded is almost like playing a different game than Arma 3. So that the whole mod culture around that game is sort of the game outside the game, right?
Absolutely.
And so I think I think games that plan on having a long-term staying power and like a long life expectancy to their, to the game's, the game's operating life cycle, whether it's Skyrim for 10 years or whatever, they need this stuff outside of the main game to survive, whether it's GTA modding with 5M, which we know Rockstar has purchased now. Rockstar's partnering with 5M. There's real value in these outside tools, and I think that's just becoming more prevalent with these games that have to be around for a long time.
Yeah, I think the snapshot into the diversity of the types of ships, like you said, the roles, the different things you can do in the game, you can literally take one screenshot of your product and be able to tell the entire story of Star Citizen, and that's rare. I don't even think the website does that, like robertspaceindustries.com. You actually have to go through and read narrative. But if you take a screenshot of the 40, I think I have 42 ships at this point, but if you take that screenshot of my 42 ships, you can have a whole dialogue, a whole 1 hour episode of Beyond the Verse podcast talking about these ships and what the capability is and what we're building, and then you can go into the object container streaming and persistent entity streaming and why these ships matter, because the game is about ships as much as go ahead.
And another thing to think about it is like even countering negative information out there. So for example, every now and then it pops up naturally in Star Citizen. You start hearing the complaints about ships aren't created fast enough. They're never going to get through the backlog. There's 33,000 years of ship development ahead of them. But one of the quickest things I learned working on Fleet Viewer, especially dealing with all the ship modeling, was damn, there's a lot of flight ready ships. It doesn't seem like that, but the amount of ships they've churned through it's extensive. Yes, they still got a lot to make, but there's a lot of ships they've completed. And remember, some of the ships they've completed still aren't available to us, but they are done essentially. So that's another thing Fleet Viewer can be great for and help communicate is the scope of work that has been completed. And that's just on the ship side with Star Citizen. Obviously it goes well beyond that with Star Citizen developers in terms of, planetary surfaces, locations, systems, tools, render, all the other stuff. But just taking that one slice that is ships, you can see the scope that has been created thus far, and it's extensive. I know, because there was a lot of nights up till 4 a.m. modeling ships that I was going, damn, they've got a lot of ships.
Yeah,
and there's a lot flight ready. I can tell you right now a nice little Fleet Viewer factoid. And I should probably do this anyway since we're talking about Fleet Viewer. VMXEO and Starlet also worked on Fleet Viewer. Starlet kind of pulled all the pieces together and created the actual interface that you're interfacing with, and how it works in conjunction with me. I kind of worked with her and how that should flow out, but she's the actual one that coded everything. And then VMXEO, who is part of StarFab, the StarFab team, which developed the StarFab tool, which is unbelievable. We split the duties of ship creation. Essentially it was flight ready ships would go through VM and concept ships would go through me. And I gotta tell you, it was about an even split. Actually, I did end up doing a lot of flight ready ships as well. But at the end of the day, it ended up being about 60 ships done through StarFab, and all the rest were done through me, which was like another 65 ships or so. And it was a year and a half of creating ship art through those two systems. So again, I always like to do a big shout out to VMXEO and the other StarFab members. To be honest with you, James Stormtrooper and Inventivar. You can find their Easter egg ships and Fleet Viewer, and then of course Starlet and for help putting all of the mess together. And so it was definitely a team effort.
Yeah,
I think Ender got one too.
Yep.
Not mistaken.
Yep. Ender got a ship.
I get the shout out ship.
Yeah. There you go. Yep. So another function of the tool, and I will screen share here in a couple of seconds. One is the hanger link, or it's the It's the information that you can upload from the hangar. And what's funny, if this is your first time listening to Beyond the Verse podcast for 27 episodes now, I've told you how of a nerd I am. Amazon, I'm a senior product manager, all things like pivot table, power pivot table. I get into the nonsense of Excel. I actually built out my hangar into an Excel spreadsheet and had all the categories. I had it pivot tabled out. It was super sexy. And then some jackass decided to introduce me to y'all's, hangar link, the hangar information. I'm like, oh, it's already there. So now I feel like an idiot, and it's so much of a better product than what I was going to create. And I think this is a really good segue. If one of y'all would like to coach me through, I am going to walk viewers on YouTube through the hangar link, both tools. I'll give kind of what I do and how I use it, but we have the subject matter experts here. What better way to have them coach the audience through? So
and I'll say too that hangar link started off as Starlet's thing, that and she kind of built all that and managed it. And then when we came up with Fleet Viewer, it just seemed like a natural fit to put them on the same platform and allow them to work with each other. And a lot of people will sometimes say, well, why don't you have the yellow Corsair paint and Fleet Viewer? And that's actually the reason is because of hangar link. Hangar link operates off of SKUs, so everything that is a SKU is listed. Paints aren't a SKU. It's not a ship SKU.
Interesting.
But certain ships with alternate paints are an actual SKU. So those are the only ones we do, because we have to have Fleet Viewer work with hangar link.
Yeah.
Right? Now we can go outside of that, but those would be considered Easter egg ships or supporter ships is what we call them internally. Essentially ships that are not part of the CIG SKU list, but are still represented in Fleet Viewer. So that's a big reason why we don't have every paint done. In addition to it being a lot of work, but the primary reason is because it's not tying into the SKUs from hangar link.
That makes total sense. Not to mention there's way too many paints to keep track of, so I don't necessarily care to not necessarily have it. But
hangar link does have a direct effect on Fleet Viewer and what we create for Fleet Viewer.
It makes sense.
So
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. So for those of you on podcast, the link literally is just hangar.link. For those of you on YouTube, obviously you are seeing my screen share. Please, one of you tell me if something is jacked up, because I can't see from my angle. So here we go.
You can use hangar.link or starjumpfleetviewer.com. Both links will take you directly to here. Yeah. Good call.
Yeah. So first off, it's funny. I see this disclaimer up here that says you're not affiliated with Cloud Imperium Games. Look, I want to recommend officially through my platform, they should totally absorb your effort and your product into what they're doing. I think it'd be the perfect application to join the Star Map and Galactopedia.
I will do real quick, and I know you want to jump in. I will say real quick that CIG has been incredibly supportive.
Awesome.
When we launched it, it did not take long before we were contacted by community managers and then essentially CIG lawyers. At that point, there were some concerns about some of the Squadron 42 stuff we were seeing, but what we were told is while there were some internal higher level discussions at CIG about possibly asking us to remove some things in Fleet Viewer, that CIG loved it so much that they decided to let us keep the Squadron 42 assets in there, which was really cool of them to do because they're super secretive of that. Things like the Pegasus and the Retribution ships like that. So that was really awesome of them. And then since then, they've just been very supportive of the project and all that good stuff. So.
Yeah, but if they do want to bring us in, I'll gladly become the community manager. I'd love to do that.
I mean, it seems like it'd be pretty easy to hire y'all in as product managers.
There you go.
I would support it.
Can be turbulent south is what they'll call us.
There you go. There you go. I love it. I love it. So quickly, and again, please interrupt me if you have better advice. But this, I would go top to bottom.
Sure.
What you want to do is you want to retrieve all of your data, right? So the Solus's data, Solus's pledges, Solus's buybacks, just upload it all. It takes a little bit, so I went ahead and already did it. I don't want to go through the cosmetics of uploading data. So there you go. Go ahead.
Sorry, for this, make sure that you download. There's a what's it called? I can't even think of it now.
Extension.
Yes, thank you. There's an extension that's necessary. It's just the hanger.link extension, I believe.
Good call out.
That you'll need to get. It'll tell you to get it, but.
And this is not pulling any of your account details, by the way. This takes the information from CIG's pledge store backend. It has nothing to do with your account per se in terms of your account credentials, your login, your information, your payment information of that. It doesn't have any. CIG doesn't allow obviously access to that, nor would we want access to that. So
yeah. I love it. Thank you.
Yep.
So clicking on the hanger link, is what I was referencing earlier about having your entire hanger in sortable prioritizational. That's not a word, but
it is now.
It is now. I just created it on my platform.
Somebody call Webster.
Yeah. But this is a phenomenal view into your 25 pages of pledge store. So here you go. I clicked into it. It's automatically uploaded. I don't know why y'all included cost, because my wife's gonna murder both of you. That's a little much there, guys. But
that's the regret column.
Yeah. We're gonna go ahead and hide cost and total out of here. But you can filter, you can sort. This is a great way of you laying out the many pages of your ships. And what I love most is like you have the packs and what makes up the pack. Like for me, I had to do like a freaking pivot table to organize like which ship came from what pack if I wanted to melt it. Well, it's all here. Where to find it. So I'm literally doing a high level kind of tactical view of what this provides. But what additional information would you want the audience to know about the hanger link beyond listing out itemizing your hangers?
If Grim, I've got one. If
go ahead,
that's okay.
Please. Yeah, no, go ahead.
Definitely, it's the CCU chains. I know that right now.
What I was going to say. So there you go. Go with it. Run with it.
You got to be able to kind of, you can search with this to get a CCU chain to whatever ship you want. If you're trying to get a BMM, it'll tell you how to do it. And the different
save a few dollars along the way.
Yeah, and it'll teach you how to save some money along the way too. I know that recently some of this information got a little bit messed up, but not too terribly, I don't think. I think it's still a very functional item and something that everybody should use at least once to go to that perfect ship for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. I will say that's another podcast at another time. CCU chaining is its own 1 hour conversation.
It is,
So we are not going to get into this, but there's many of YouTube videos that you can go and search. A lot of content creators went through CCU chaining, but in a long story short kind of capacity, CCU chaining is using all of the mechanisms of melting and discounts and Invictus launch week and IAE, like all of it. It incorporates all of it to say, how do you get to the Javelin, or how do you get to the 890 jump in the most efficient and cheapest way? Now, what I will tell you, my brother has spent way too much time doing the CCU chaining. He's like, you know what? I could probably get the 890 jump like next year, and it just kills me. Like, really, it is its own game by all means.
Oh yeah. I've seen people come out with hammerheads for $450, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's $300 off. It's crazy.
Like, how did you do that?
And I'll tell you, the hanger.link and Starjump Fleet Viewer I think sometimes people look at them as like, and they'll say this, I'm sure it's true to some degree. They'll be like, man, you've probably helped CIG sell a ton of ships, right? And I think that's probably true. But at the same time, and more importantly, I think, especially with looking at Hangar.link, because you can see your buybacks, you can see your current pledges, prices, all that stuff, and your CCU change and stuff. I actually look at Fleet Viewer and Hangar.link as a way to save people money. Right? Not just through CCU chains and stuff like that, but just in order, for example, being able to see your fleet as a whole sometimes can allow you to make strategic decisions. Maybe instead of putting that extra money into the game, by looking at your fleet as a whole, you go, yeah, you know what? I've got some redundancy over here and I can melt these 2 ships, because it literally, this just happened to me last night. I melted a ship because I consulted Ender with it, but I melted a ship because I was like, I have redundancy here. I don't need. So so for us, we kind of look at it as a tool that can also help save the person money and not have them be putting money into the game unnecessarily. I mean, I know one thing Starlet about Starlet is she wants to be pretty careful about doing anything that would push someone or make someone feel like they do need to put money into the game. I mean, Starlet is someone, I think, and not to speak for her, but she'd be very open in saying you'll be able to earn it in game. You'll be able to earn it in game. Yeah. And I think the reason for that is that to get away from this idea that it's always about putting more money in. And I think Fleet Viewer can help you do that. It can help you see beyond just pledging, and it helps you see your fleet as something that's malleable, that you can work with. You can melt things, you can CCU things, you can sort of manipulate the money you already have into the game to get the most optimal fleet for you. Because as a new player coming into Star Citizen, you might start buying stuff or pledging for stuff, but you don't totally know what the game is yet.
Yeah.
And you may have a limited amount of money to spend. Maybe you've set a cap for yourself at $100. You're like, I'm not going any higher than that, which is totally fine and respectable. But you might buy that initial arrow, right? But 6 months down the road, you're like, you know what? I really just want to be salvaging. That's what I'd want to do.
Yeah, this isn't what I want to do.
Such a good call.
Exactly. So, it's a good tool for looking at things like that. How to maximize your potential with the ships you have and the money you have invested.
Yep. So I have 3 different save files, JSON files for my fleet on Fleet Viewer. I've got my current fleet just laid out. I've got my current fleet, but set up as what I would like them, the role that everything's going to play and all of that. And then I have my future fleet, the fleet that I want, and I want it to be my final fleet, how I'm going to buy it, and all of that. Yeah. So I've got them laid out. Everything's color coded, and it's I get deep with it.
Brilliant.
But it's a fun way to spend my time. You know what I mean? If I'm not playing Star Citizen at the time, and I'm just not gaming right now,
100%.
It's a really good way to kind of take a look at what I'm doing and plan ahead, start planning for the future.
I mean, when you're at work and you're supposed to be writing an OP1 doc for 2000, like, this is what you should be doing instead.
My warehouse manages itself. The videos I can get edited later. Look, I'm building Fleet Viewer right now.
I will say that
2 weeks out.
I will say, on the Hangar.link side of things, I would say that one of the cool things that I constantly use is your buyback section. So that's something that I would tell people to always kind of keep an eye on. That's pretty interesting. Seeing what you have that you may have forgotten. Something you may have melted. Again, it's all about, I look at it as cards you're trading back and forth. So that's something I use a lot within it. But I think that the last thing I'll say on Fleet Viewer Hangar.link, specifically with Hangar.link, which again is Starlet's baby. It's really her brainchild, is much like with other tool sites, so like Urkel and Starship 42, and there's many other. These are labor of love, and they're extremely time intensive. Managing all the data and stuff for Hangar.link is an undertaking, and for the people that manage these tools, you got to remember there's times where they're high on Star Citizen and times where they're not, and so it takes a lot of effort, and if you enjoy these tools and if you see Starlet out there, definitely give Starlet a salute. She's just put a lot of work in there, and I think it's been a real benefit to the community, at large. I don't know if she's in chat or anything, but either way, there's a continuing tax that's always placed on her to make sure that stays up to date, and I know she's trying really hard to do that.
That's crazy. Yeah, I just want to go on record saying it is super impressive and humbling. So again, my work background, I live the Scrum cycle, the Agile framework. I live the product manager life. Like, I know what this takes. Maybe structurally, I know what this takes, and it is incredible. I highly recommend that CIG look at something like this to add to the applications that already exist. I don't mean to like blow smoke up anybody's rear on this podcast, but it's absolutely absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And I think it was a great call out. I believe it was you, Grim, that said like new gamers should absolutely know about this before they start throwing in $140 for the Cutlass Black starter pack. Yeah. I don't know if that's the best decision, right? Like there's better things to invest your money in if your end state is what you're seeing on the screen right now. If your end state is a freaking Javelin, Kraken Idris, Bonnie Merchantman, like there's a better way of doing it than just spending $15,000.
Sure. And it also can just be a visualization of your path through the game once those things are earnable in game. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, and I think essentially once we get to the point, probably beta or V1, whatever CIG is going to call it, where we do not have resets anymore.
Yes.
Resets where you're set backwards.
Yes.
Even if they have a hard reset of the servers, everything, your stuff all stays the same. There's no backwards regression and stuff. And when we get to that point, these ship progression lines are going to become a big deal for players. They're going to be working long term for the Javelin, the Idris, the whatever, right? So, that'll be important when we get to that stage of the game, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it will.
Absolutely.
And one thing that I know Grim says, Starlet says, as Grim pointed out earlier, you don't really need the amount of money that some of us have probably put into this game
don't look at me.
Enjoy the game. Yeah. Like, you can buy the $45 starter package.
Yes.
It's a really good ship. It's a good money earner for the start.
Yeah.
Even better, if you don't like the ship, reach out on the actual game and go, hey, I don't have a ship. Anybody need work?
Yeah.
People will pay you to work for them in the game.
Absolutely.
Even now. Yeah. So in the future, when this is all running better, man, okay. When the persistence is there, you're really going to have something special.
Such a good point. Like, such a good point. You don't need to have every aspect of the game in your fleet.
$45 and then buy everything else over time.
Absolutely.
Or if you want to spend, what is it now? 25,000 to get Legatus. I think it's 25K. If you want to spend that, spend it. Look, you're funding a big dream, and I'm happy to see it get funded. So either way,
it is a special person who can spend the price of a car on this game. I'll leave it there.
Or a newly single person, depending on how that's going.
That's fair.
My wife would leave me immediately, for sure.
Absolutely. So, all right. Quick time check. We're 38 minutes into it. I don't want to rush through Fleet View because that's like the whole purpose of this beginning intro to the podcast. But I want to go through Fleet View real quick. Yes, we're using Solus as maybe the backdrop of talking through it. But y'all saw, as we were talking, you saw me upload the fleet into the system, and you'll see all 40 ships. Now, first off, where's my F8C Lightning? I think y'all have dropped the ball. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
It's there. You just need to refresh your.
Do I?
Yeah, I did it yesterday.
Well, crap.
I had the same issue. I was like, mine didn't load up. I was like, I didn't refresh it.
Fantastic.
But yeah, you refresh it, it'll load for sure.
I'm totally kidding, but that's really good to really good to know. But
reset that cache.
yeah, this is great. So first off, there has been some amazing community creations where they have taken this and made their own like version or like their own story to tell. Maybe they lay out the ships a little differently. I'm not going to go through. If we had more time, I would go through and show you kind of how to do that, but you can move these renderings around to whatever layout you want to. You can tell a story. Ender made the comment a couple minutes ago about his future ships. It's such a great user-friendly user interface. It's intuitive, but I'm going to pause here. I'm going to let y'all talk about Fleet Viewer. And then, yes, we will be getting into CitizenCon 2953 drops, and we will be getting into the F8C Lightning. So, Grim, Ender, what are we looking at? What do you wish the audience would know about Fleet View?
Grim, you first.
Cool. So Fleet Viewer is primarily centered around performance and fidelity. Those are its two key hallmarks that we focused on from the very beginning of the project. Okay, I had a PDF with a set of goals for Fleet Viewer, and those were the top two goals. So because we wanted performance to always be top of mind, and we knew that people have massive fleets. We specifically wanted to use pre-rendered assets, right? So no live 3D stuff. It was all going to be pre-rendered. However, going pre-rendered allowed us to naturally accomplish the other goal, high fidelity, right? So those stills could be rendered extremely high fidelity. You can view things in 4 angles, which are isometric, profile, front, and top. The front view is not a straight-on front. It's a front with a 30-degree down angle. We give you a good amount of freedom. I think internally we've had some talks about maybe doing a right angle isometric and maybe a rear view, but essentially the idea is we wanted to maximize the level of creativity the user could have in this Fleet Viewer experience, while always maintaining performance standards. And if you look at the feature set in Fleet Viewer, that's why you'll see a lot of the stuff there. For example, the ability to switch from LD, SD, and HD, essentially standing for low definition, high standard definition, and high definition. If you have a huge fleet, right? Let's say it's 500 ships, right? To see all those ships, you have to zoom out pretty far. So now your ships become postage stamp size. At that size, you do not need to be at HD resolution. You can be at LD resolution. Be just in pure pixel density. That's still going to look fine. But if you need to, if your fleet's only 4 ships big, well, naturally you're going to be scaled up on those 4 ships. At that point, you're now much closer to those. You've now zoomed those pixels in. So we need the fidelity. So no matter what features we put in, performance and fidelity were always top of mind. And then the third factor that came in here, but it was a much lower priority, was like creativity, customization, right? And that's where you see feature sets like being able to type whatever you want in your ship labels, being able to change the background, even be able to do transparent backgrounds, all that kind of stuff, or do Easter egg ships, or do props. So for example, you can put asteroids in there, explosions, gas clouds, all kinds of stuff. So that was a lower priority, but everything was always done with fidelity and performance in mind. So
yeah, and as you're seeing on the screen, I just opened up the menu, and everything that Grim just said it's super easy. Like I said, intuitive. I'm going to stop repeating myself, but it's very, very intuitive. If you want to add text, I mean, it's all here.
I'll give you a real good example. Is that and there's a lot of creative ways to use Fleet Viewer, and even we think of ways to use Fleet Viewer. We have a show me and Ender do called Fleet Builders. We haven't done an episode in a while, but we are getting back to it. And it's a show where we would posit a question, right? That question may be, or a set of parameters, and we would say, okay, you've got 50 crew members. You have so you have 50 crew members. Build the best racing fleet you can build, or mining fleet or whatever, and we would do these sort of versus scenarios to see how we both tackled that problem, knowing we only had 50 crew members, which could determine how many ships you choose and what ships you choose and all that. So it's a really fun, you can almost build your own sort of games out of it, and it's a lot of fun to play with in that way.
So awesome. It's so awesome. And the last thing I'll say, and I will kind of move us to CitizenCon here in a couple of seconds, but the last thing I'll say is YouTube. Go to StarJump.org's YouTube. The links will be in the podcast. The links will be in the YouTube video. Go there, and if you wanted hype, the copium, the hopium, if you wanted all of that, go to their YouTube video and watch like the Kraken video, the Idris video. Like they go into, and some of it's surmising. Like I get that. I get some of it's based off of like, projection. But
a lot of speculation.
But if you want to get fired up before CitizenCon, that's the way to do it. Go over to that video and watch that, because they've got, again, the Kraken video I think is probably one of my favorites. I keep going back to that video because I'm like, I have one. I kind of want to know more about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you guys absolutely deserve all of the kudos, all of the credit. So with that...
Thank you, man.
Absolutely. So with that, we're going to go through a little bit of Beyond the Verse kind of like agenda. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen on YouTube. We're going to go through some of what dropped this week. We're going to get into a very quick recap of the portfolio, Squadron 42, and then we'll get into CitizenCon. So stand by. All right, for this week in Star Citizen, this is week 41. It's a very short week. As you know, the developers... most of the team is in Los Angeles getting ready for CitizenCon, so it's a light week, quote unquote. Yet I would argue a lot happened this week. A lot happened this week. The birthday happened, F8C Lightning drop, which surprised a lot of individuals. But quickly to the article that you're seeing on my screen. This week in Star Citizen dropped Monday. Tuesday was the Star Citizen birthday, which was delayed because of patch issues. We'll get into that in a second. A lore post drop of the Unification Wars. Wednesday, we had the Squadron 42 report. And then tomorrow, so Friday, we're going to see the weekly newsletter. And I'm just going to keep sharing my screen. We're going to move hot and heavy through this. The portfolio Unification Wars, just quickly, if you're into the lore, if you're watching this podcast, more than likely you are, because we always add like a lore flavor to what we do. There is a lore drop on Tuesday called Unification Wars. It's about 2380 through 2384. The idea was, and this is ironic or coincidental timing, unfortunately, but it's about the United Nations of Earth formation and how some individuals didn't like it, so it created a 4-year-long war. And it gets into the Stanley Mutiny, it gets into the siege of Syrtis, and it gets into the fight for New York City. I say it's unfortunate because of everything that's happening right now in Israel and Hamas. I'm not going to get into the politics of that, but it's just a very rough time in real life, and obviously the Unification War. So however you want to dissect that, it's an interesting conversation. The article is actually really well written, which I might actually go back and make a YouTube video of the narration of this video. It's phenomenal. Straight into the Squadron 42 monthly report. I am not going to go through all 17 pages. I printed this out in Word. I'm not going to go through 17 pages of notes, but what I will do is back out to our lovely chat and ask y'all about Squadron 42. So there's a lot of updates. There was nothing in this report that indicated, hey, CitizenCon's gonna announce Squadron 42. Like, there was nothing I was like, okay, like, we need to talk about it. But I would love to hear from both of you. Andrew, maybe we start with you, sir. What are our thoughts on Squadron 42? What are we excited about? What do we hope to hear about in CitizenCon with all things Squadron 42?
I'd like to, I honestly, at CitizenCon, I'd love to see them just show us some progress.
Sure.
Something we haven't seen too much of. And I think it's good that they've kept it under wraps personally, but I think now's the time, if they're to that point, And the F8C coming out kind of makes me feel like maybe they're getting close to that point.
Yeah.
Close enough, I should say.
Yeah.
Where they could come out and say, hey, we've progressed and this is where we're at. Or, any information, I think, for Squadron 42 is going to be good.
Yeah, I think for me, there were two ships that were bound to Squadron 42. The Idris and the F8C. We had heard, and we're going to get into the F8C here in a couple minutes, but the F8C was like, hey, look, you're going to get it by being a Wing Commander Concierge member or higher, or when you defeat Squadron 42 through some, earnings, you're going to be able to fly the FCA or F8C. Well, that clearly wasn't the case because of the birthday event that happened this week. So there's a lot of me, and if you follow, all right, I'm just going to say it. If you follow Beyond the Verse socials, I am all about the copium and hopium. I live one life.
It's hard not to be.
Absolutely. I live one life. I don't care about the naysayers. You know what? We're gonna get Pyro in Q4, and we're gonna get Squadron 42 in 2024. Hey, you know what? Like that's what's gonna happen.
Right.
But I do think your comments, Ender, are spot on. I do think we're close to something. And I think you're onto something. The F8C was a good indicator on potentially more to come in Citizen Con.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big drop. And don't get me wrong. If they're using this as a means of earning money, good on them. They did a phenomenal job with it. The F8C is the perfect ship. A lot of people have been one. The people who have, spent the amount of money to get those F8s are excited to see those. So I think seeing that drop is a big deal, and it's a good way for them to make money if that's what they were intending. But Absolutely. I almost feel like they're tongue-in-cheeking here, and they're going, yeah, we'll release the ship. Here's the F8. Don't worry about that whole, it was only for Squadron 42 thing. No,
yeah.
Nothing there. So
Yeah.
I do think that there's something coming. I won't say that I think it's going to be, it's coming out. But I do think that they're going to be able to tell us a little more. And I think that's exciting. So.
Yeah.
Andrew, I think you should go on record. What do you think is going to be announced about Squadron 42? Come on, man. Let's hear it.
I mean, if I were to venture a guess, because that's all it's got to be, I would say that, hold on, I disagree with you, Texas, but we'll get into that.
You do, chat.
I would say that they would give us some video of not just, the CGI, but also maybe the game in action. A little bit of the game in action from what they're working on. I think they could be to that point. I might be wrong.
Yeah.
But I think they could be to that point. And if not that, maybe an announcement of when we might be able to see that. It could be close enough that they might be willing to announce that, hey, next year, this time, or next year, or blah, 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 we're going to show this off. I think that would be what we're going to get.
I would be happy if Mark Hamill just showed up.
I mean,
give us Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
Give me Luke Skywalker.
Mark Hamill showing up.
Yeah, especially if you're going to be there.
Yeah, well, that's fair. We'll get into that in a couple seconds. But Gary Oldman, Mark Hamill, I don't even care about dates. Just give me that.
If Gary Oldman showed up, my wife would be angry we didn't go.
Yep.
That is her celebrity crush. So
yeah. Grib, your turn. Your turn. 20. Wow. Squadron 42. Thoughts?
Yeah.
Feelings, emotions.
So, the game is all about milestones for me. That's how I pledged into the game. That's how I've gotten certain big ships, or through seeing CIG accomplish certain milestones. And those milestones are milestones that I set for myself. Like when they cross this line, that gives me confidence to do X. When they cross this next line, that gives me confidence to do Y. You know what I mean? And with Squadron 42, I look at it in terms of the Squadron 42 monthly reports, and to me, while they're 17 pages long, they're getting lighter and lighter and they have been for a long time. And certain things that used to be talked about are no longer talked about, which is kind of a milestone for me. So, for example, one of the milestones I set with Squadron 42 is when I see the ship teams no longer putting Squadron 42 updates in, that's a good thing. Right. So now the only ship stuff we get is in relation to AI controlling and stuff like that. But in terms of like ship art for Squadron 42, there's no more discussion about it really in the monthly reports, really not at large. And
that's a good thing, right?
It's a very good thing. It means their work is finished.
Yeah.
And then we're seeing more and more teams. We've just seen it in recent weeks where teams are starting to use words like closeout and beta and stuff like that. We're getting to a phase where what I think is going to be announced for Squadron 42 at this year's CitizenCon is I think we're going to see some sort of new vertical slice, whether that's gameplay or all in-game cinematics. I think we're going to see some sort of vertical slice of the game. That's what I hope to see. And I hope to hear an announcement of a rough target quarter for release. Now, I don't necessarily know if we'll get that and what that quarter is this CitizenCon, but what I think we will see this CitizenCon that can give us some hints to what that quarter may be is that we're going to see the beginning of the marketing push. For a big AAA game, you should expect a marketing push of 6 months, I would think. And I work in marketing, and it is different from films to TV and stuff like that. But
sure,
on a game that this much of investment's been made, I would think you'd want a 6-month marketing push leading into the game's launch, right? And marketing is no easy feat. You need trailers cut. You need to prepare events with all your talent to go to do the meet and greets. You need a press tour. You need marketing stuff created. You need promotional packages created, which is, we recently saw the Squadron 42 game packages go off the store. So new game package promotion item SKUs need to be created with new tie-ins to both Star Citizen and Squadron 42. So there's a lot that goes into that on the marketing phase. The marketing is not just releasing a trailer. That's just one tiny part. So I am hoping we get a vertical slice and the beginnings of the marketing push. And what would cue me up to the beginning of the marketing push would be some new Squadron 42 game package promotions that we can buy and or new key art. Like if we start seeing new key art, we've always seen that same Squadron 42 logo animation, which is fine. It looks great. But when we start seeing new key art, meaning stuff they're creating to promote the game, that's a big indicator because that's stuff you usually don't spend money on until you need it. Yeah, it's a good call. That's a great call. All the above, like I wish, I hope all of it gets covered. Because to me, first off, it was already announced, and I can't pinpoint when it was discussed or when it was published, but Star Citizen is nowhere without Squadron 42. Like Squadron 42 is going to launch first, and everything else is put on the back burner. Now the tech advances made on one is the tech advances on the other. Like we've talked about this through nausea, but we know that Squadron 42 is the main initiative. So any progress that we see or anything that we hear, to your point, Grim, and to your point, Ender, anything that we see in CitizenCon for Squadron 42 is a good indicator that we're here, that we're close. And I think you're spot on about no more conversations about certain ships. That is an interesting pull. And there's other examples of that, but you start seeing certain conversations quiet down and all but disappear from those monthly reports. And I've noticed in the Squadron 42 monthly reports, there's some sections that they seem to just kind of fluff up with information that seems a little redundant. a little bit redundant and just kind of fluffy. Like it's a lot of words, but it's kind of simple ideas. So it feels like they're sort of filling it out a little bit because I think that they're realizing the Squadron 42 monthly reports are starting to get smaller and smaller and smaller. Again, all this is good stuff, right? But Squadron 42, I mean, one thing I will say about it is that even players who are just interested in Star Citizen and not interested in Squadron 42 should definitely care about Squadron 42 because we need it to be successful. It doesn't need to be the greatest game ever released, but it needs to be a pretty decent game when it comes out, because it will directly affect Star Citizen's future.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, pay attention to all of it. And there's like this really good podcast called Beyond the Verse that you might want to tune into, because we're going to be covering every single aspect of that until then. So really quick to YouTube comments. No Texas Space Navy. I am not going to talk about it going to console. That is... So I have a lot of close proximity work with Amazon Game Studios, and there's the console translation that maybe on some podcasts moving forward, but we don't want that yet. Maybe several years down in the future, but you want the flexibility and the platform of PC to drive what we're doing in Star Citizen and Squadron 42. The moment you start talking about the future of like platform, you start talking about year cycles of like 5-year cycles, 10-year cycles. Yeah. You don't want that. Let's stay talking PC.
Well, I would argue that if Squadron 42, not anything else, definitely not Star Citizen.
Fair.
But if Squadron 42 were to go to console, it would not only be better in the long run for the PU, because you're getting that extra money from
it's fair
single player, the people that only play on console.
Yeah.
And this, I would say, is the perfect game to put on console, and maybe to bring some people from console to computer, because hey, I've got to play that game that you can play all the time.
Yep, there is a conversion rate conversation. Yeah, and I think that's a valid point. What I don't want, and sorry for the pull here, but what I don't want is a Final Fantasy 14 that gets put on to PlayStation.
No further
comments.
Comment needs to be made on this, because we are absolutely in agreement.
Yes. Okay, CitizenCon. First off, we're at time. I want to make sure it's okay with my special guests. We ready to move forward, or we need to wrap this guy up?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we can go forward.
All right. This is going to be a long podcast. I'm okay with that. This is a great conversation. So let's get into this. CitizenCon. So earlier in the week, huge drop. There was finally, it's almost as if the CIG developers are watching Beyond the Verse podcast, because last week I was like, hey guys, we're 2 weeks out and we don't know crap about the agenda. Like, at least TwitchCon, we know like a month out, like what to expect. I was getting kind of nervous. I'm like, hey guys, 2 weeks out. I don't know what to get excited about. And sure enough, it was Monday or Tuesday, I think it was Monday, when they dropped the agenda to the Pocket Guide. So please go to the Pocket Guide. I'm pulling this information from robertspaceindustriescom/CitizenCon. So here we go. Hopefully you can see my screen. It's probably super, super tiny. I can't get it any bigger for some reason. But here we go. I asked a poll on our socials, so please follow BTV_cast on all socials. We do this interactive social engagement with the community, but we asked a poll, over 1,200 impressions, over 800 votes, and it looks like about 2/3 are more excited about day one than they are about day two. Interesting. And day two has the freaking after party, but hey, 2/3 wanted day one. And so let's talk through the agenda, and I would love to hear from Grim and Ender, who unfortunately are not going to be here for CitizenCon.
Not this year.
Not this year, but next year they plan on being day one. Let's go through the agenda, and I would love to hear your reactions on day one. 9 a.m. the doors open, and again, this is all available to you no matter where you are on their Twitch. They're going to stream everything live. So 9 a.m. the doors open. It's going to be a lot of booth, a lot of tables, a lot of meet and greets. 11 a.m. Shaping the Verse, the future of Star Engine. Quote, from pixel to, I can't even see this, from pixel to persistent universe and everything in between, join us as we showcase the power and depth of Star Engine, enabling the seamless scale that push our games to the cutting edge of industry technology and beyond. So a tech piece, fix it and fly it. It's a thing about resource management, which I think is super sexy about Star Citizen. It's the idea that you're going to have engineers putting out fires on your Idris, just amazing. 1:30 p.m. you're gonna have a cosplay competition, which I'm sure Grim and Ender would show up in their cosplay outfits if they were there.
I have a pair of Daisy Dukes.
Yes,
and a halter top. That would be
enough said.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw up a little bit here in a little bit, but 3 p.m. Talking Ship 2953. That's gonna be huge. I think a lot of speculation for Talking Ships, and then 4 p.m. Navigating the Universe with the new navigation systems coming out in Star Citizen. I'm gonna shut up. Grim, Ender, take it away.
Well,
Grim, what are you excited for?
Well, so for me, I'll go ahead and tell you just top level. I look at all the panels from day 1 and day 2 through the prism of 4.0. Because if you reframe them in that way, they make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So when I first saw this Shaping the Verse one, I was a little bit like, why are we getting a star engine, walk through? We've had these before. But if you really read this in between the lines, one of the things they say there is enabling the seamless scale that push our games to the cutting edge. This is going to be server meshing. This is the panel that will talk about server meshing or static server meshing and the replication layer separation. 100%. That's what this is going to be about. We've had panels on Star Engine in the past, so we know about it, but that is your 4.0 server meshing update. Is in terms of like my opinion. I think if you read between the lines, it's pretty clear that that's what that's going to be.
Yeah, that's exciting. And again, you have 27 episodes to catch up, but we talk in very depth about OCS, PES, and SM, right? The 3 pillars that Star Citizen is trying to accomplish, or that will accomplish. So that's going to be huge. I agree with you, Grim. I think knowing more about the technology and what that means, the fact that I can drop a box on a planet, log out for a week, tell my brother to log in a month later, find that box behind a tree, I said it. Like, that is not even feasible in any other game, not at that scale, right? So that is going to be a very amazing conversation. Ender, what are your thoughts on day 1?
I think that there are 2 panels that are kind of sleepers that people aren't. Grim, you mentioned one of these as a potential conversation piece for Fix It and Fly It. The resource management stuff doesn't just go into putting out fires and things like that.
That's fair.
Grim and I were talking the other night, and he mentioned, ship security is something that could absolutely go into resource management.
There's a lot tied
funneling
to that,
people specific ways. Grim has this amazing ability to think outside of the box with a lot of things. His use of a Nautilus in every single fleet builders that we do, I forget that he does that, and it
I think it's just because if you're one of those people that combs through the backlog, the years and years of backlog of CIG content, you can start to tie some of these big ideas together. And this is actually one of Star Citizen and CIG's shortcomings, is that their information is so spread out over 10 years that it's hard sometimes to collate everything. But Fix It and Fly It is the panel I'm most excited for. I've told Ender many times, being an engineer on a ship is one of the main things I want to do. So many things are tied to it because it's tied to the room and piping system. CIG used to mention the room and piping system a long time ago in almost every damn video. Now they've started to parse that off in different language because it has evolved. But everything is based off that, from the gravity in the room to the air in the room to fire propagation. We'll probably see all that fire tech. It's probably going to be in this. We're going to see things like room to room, door to door security systems for ships. I think we're going to see all that stuff in the resource management demo.
The other one that I think is exciting is the navigating the verse, because I don't think we're just looking at UI changes. I think it's possible. I'm not going to say plausible, but it's possible that they will unveil a new star map. I hope they do it. At least I should say.
I think it's 100% the new star map.
I'm pretty sure it is too.
I'll go ahead and say it. Based off things I've heard, it's the star map.
It's the new star map, guys.
And that's something I don't mind saying. It's the new star map. It's needed. It should be the damn keynote speech, as far as I'm concerned. We desperately need a new star map.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. And then obviously talking ship is always one of my favorites. Hearing John Crew, Ben Curtis, and all the team talk about ships. You know, there's rumors about the Zeus and other things possibly getting illuminated, but the ship I really want to hear about is I want a Polaris update.
Oh, okay.
And primarily because, well, I own it and I'm excited for it, but primarily because I think the Polaris, while we'll get bits of resource management in the Hammerhead and a couple of other ships they told us about, I think the Polaris will be the ship that brings resource management online and it's like full capacity. I think it is essentially the resource management test, or like not test bed, but it's the resource management vehicle that we're going to experience the full engineering gameplay loop in. Because they often said that we were not going to get any more capitals until they could build in resource management. That's something they've said specifically. So yeah.
Well,
we'll see.
Yeah. So here's my conspiracy theory. If you haven't already seen, my infamous post from July. See, I think it's going to be the Idris. So I personally, because the Idris is already quote unquote flyable. You can steal it. It's glitched all to hell, but you can steal it and you can fly it. But to your exact point, I think they need something that's going to demonstrate the resource management. And that Idris, and I might be mixing some of the ships up, but I'm pretty damn sure the Idris has like the prison block. It's got the gun range, right? The gun range on the port side. The briefing room. So yeah, exactly. I think we're gonna. I don't know. So here's my conspiracy theory. I think in the map, I'm gonna go and show y'all because I'm on a tirade. Top left part of the map, it says staff only. No one gives two craps where the staff is gonna be. Like, I think that's gonna be a blocked off spot where JRDF is creating a model, which they've already confirmed that they're working on something for CitizenCon. They've already confirmed it. So I think they're building a damn Idris, and there's going to be a mass reveal that the Idris will be available as the next capital ship, Q4. So I'm calling it.
I would love that. I mean, I would love that to be the case. I really would.
Yeah, probably not.
And I haven't heard if that's the case or not. To be honest, I haven't heard nothing. One of the things I've heard the least about from my sources are what to expect ship wise, which is kind of weird because that's the stuff like
they want to talk about that. Yeah, they want to drop a hint.
And our good buddy VMXEO, who we work with on Fleet Viewer and stuff, he works with JRDF as well, is one of them. And obviously he can't reveal any of the secrets, and we don't pry. But I do know he's been busy. He's been very busy.
He has.
I would love for it to be the Idris. Look, I think the Idris, I want to see it in game. We haven't seen it with its full interior. It's a ship that I've toured its interior using the game files, and I've toured the interior of the Javelin. There's a lot there, like a huge amount of stuff there that players have not really been able to see. And I would love. I've been a big proponent of them allowing bigger tours of those two ships during Invictus. But is it possible for them to release the Idris? Maybe. I do know that there are a lot of things the last I heard, there was a lot of things they needed to do to the Idris to get it properly set up for the PU, but that was about 1.5 years ago. That's a lot of time. You know what I mean? And if you look on the progress tracker under the ship teams, there's a line item there under I think it's the EU ship team that's always there, and it's been running forever, and it's Squadron 42 ship support. That's all it's listed as, right? That's how they hide a lot of these ships. Okay. So any work that's occurred on the Idris has been hidden in there. So it's very possible you could get surprised with a flyable Idris in Q4 or whenever, or when Squadron 42 launches. So I'm rooting for you. I would love for it to be the Idris. I know it's not the Polaris, but I do want an update on the Polaris. I'm very excited about. I'm personally excited about us starting to get a flood of RSI ships.
Yes.
So I think that's very possible. We'll get the Zeus. Mm-hmm. We already know the Apollo is in active production right now. The Polaris is in active production. They've told us they want Galaxy to be the first ship to bring on modularity. So I think the Galaxy will be coming. I think we're about to see an 8 to 12 month, possibly 16-month sprint of a lot of RSI ships. Not nothing but RSI ships, but a lot of RSI ships. Yep.
As long as I get my spirits, I don't bring RSI out.
Well, I've got to ask you, Ender, your favorite spirit. I'm curious.
E1.
Okay, the executive or the
executive
classic.
That's the one that's most interesting to me. Don't get me wrong. I love the A1 because it can drop bombs. That's cool.
We have a lot of those.
The bombs that it drops are cool. The cargo's okay, cool. But
they've been told
to have this new gameplay loop, that to me seems really, really interesting. If you'd asked me 2 years ago, hell, a year ago, are you going to be interested in? Well, a year ago, yeah, probably, because the E1 was out then. Sure. Are you going to be interested in, ferrying people around? I just said no, for sure not.
Yeah.
But the spirit, for some reason, the spirit kind of spoke to me about that, because it's just 6 people and you get a mix master. So there's like this RP gameplay that comes in with that I love. I'm excited for.
Yeah.
It's definitely the E1.
And Grim, I think I cut you off. You were about to say something.
No, I was just going to say, in regards to talking ship 2953, in addition to a Polaris update, one of the bigger things I hope they talk about, because I think it would benefit the community as a whole, is I really hope John Crew goes into detail about the huge changes that have been going on with the ship teams over the last 12 to 16 months. Yeah. And I hope he expands on that, because obviously they added the Montreal team. I think there's already been rumors that there's going to be another ship team coming on board. So something is changing here. And what I think John Crew may speak to is new pipelines and procedures and production studios that are now part of the fold, where they're going to be able to increase ship output and catch up on some of this backlog. They may not say it in that blunt of terms, but I think we may hear something about these new ship teams, because they haven't spoken. They really haven't given us any details on the Montreal ship team at all.
Just that it existed.
Yeah. So it's going to be really interesting. I think that's something that will be talked about.
Yeah,
that'd be good for them to bring it up on too.
Yeah, definitely. Let me get into day 2. Here we go. So day 2, 9 a.m. doors open again. 11 o'clock character advancement. So that one I had to read a couple of times because I didn't really know what it meant. But we explore the outlaw styles found on the frontier. Good Lord, it's so small for me too.
The far frontier.
The far frontier. The new technology is enabling our next generation of character customization. That's huge. Maybe aliens are in our future. And the much anticipated arrival of good Lord, diverse. What's the last word?
Coiffure. Coiffure.
Got it.
Hairstyles.
There you go. Perfect. I love it. 12 o'clock.
I'm hoping it means beard styles.
Yes.
That's what I'm hoping it means.
We need facial hair.
Is to get some facial hair.
All 3 of us on this show have beards.
Yeah.
and we are clean shaven in the verse, and that is a shame.
It's wrong.
But
it's just wrong.
But continue. I have something I'll add to this when we circle back around to it.
Quickly, 12 o'clock life in first person, 1 o'clock taking flight. Taking flight is specifically the actual Star Citizen flight experience and explore impending improvements. Living on the Edge. I'm super excited about Living on the Edge. I'll hold my opinion on that, but just ways of living around the verse. Destination adventure, and then the closing ceremony into the after party. I'm shutting up. Grim, Ender, take over.
Oh, Grim.
Well, one thing that would be pretty awesome to see in character advancement, I don't know if we will, but it's possible we could see maybe some of the cybernetic stuff.
I would absolutely
Okay.
love that to come about for sure.
I think we could see some of that. I think we'll see some of this character stuff. What I hope they do here is I hope they show us. They're a little iffy with this panel where they sort of make it out like they're going to show off the outlaw NPCs and gangs and stuff that we'll encounter in Pyro and beyond. But what I hope this is also going to be is a preview of the next iteration of the character creator.
Yes.
And character customization for player facing, not just CIG facing, because sometimes they'll label things that say right there where it says our next generation of character customization, but what they actually mean is their internal tools. I hope this means the external tools that go to the player. I hope we'll see that. I think Star Citizen's character creator is, you can see they have they have big dreams there, but it's a pretty shallow experience. And I hope something they really build out. I know they have plans to, and something they've been working on for a long time. So hopefully that's what this panel is about.
Grim, quickly on that piece, what would be a good example of it being done well, like in Baldur's Gate 3 and Starfield? Like what do you hope that this would accomplish? Like at least the closest example that you have.
That's a great question. I haven't played Baldur's Gate 3. I've heard its character customizer is incredible. What I will say is I feel like a lot of games right now are leaning into these like minutia detail of character customization. So for example, they'll have it to where, you can change the secondary, tertiary pigment color of your pupil.
Right.
And it's like, that's great, but you're using the same skeleton for every character, or you don't allow beards, but you allow me to put individual
scar
marks
marks
right here on my face. I want broad stroke stuff that allows us to give our characters proper personality differences and identity differences from a medium third-person camera position like we have in Star Citizen from behind. So for example, and not that those little details aren't important, they are, but when your entire character bases are built off the same skeletal system, the same body structure, there's no differences there. It sort of feels like, what's that saying where it's like a mile wide but an inch deep? That's sort of what the Star Citizen character creator feels like. And I'll go so far is saying that's what Starfield's feels like to me too.
Sure.
In my limited amount of time playing with it, it feels, Starfield's maybe feels like a mile wide and 10 feet deep, but what I want is a mile wide, 200 feet deep. So but for me, one thing I can say about this, and Ender I'm sure would agree, we're big RPers. We RP'd a lot in Warcraft and stuff, and RP is actually, our entire org concept is built around RP. As a matter of fact, when the game is fully going, I think our org will be more of a full-time RP guild. So character customization is really important for us, just from storytelling and from a storytelling perspective. So I hope we see what they're bringing to the players in terms of character customization, not just NPC customization.
Don't get me wrong, what we have now is a good start, but my character is like 60, 65, I think. He's not a young guy. You know what I mean? So I don't want him to look, I want him to look like he's lived a life, and just I'm tired, I'm old, and I'm ready to kind of not do a lot of the stuff I have done.
He's been fighting the Tavarian, fighting. Absolutely.
So I don't want a character that, my Starfield character, I tried to make him look like an old man, and I did okay. Graham, you saw it. But he looks like John Cena, and he still looks like a model. Just older. You know what I mean? So it's like, I got the old part, but he doesn't look haggard. He doesn't look. I want to be able to get that age on my character in some ways, not in every way, but I, like Grim said, the broad strokes of it, so that you can see that age would be good.
Got it. So Grim, quickly, but back to you. The thing that you're most excited, was it the character creation, or was there another topic that you were most excited about for day 2?
Yeah, I think day 2 is a little bit of a toss up. I think the 2 panels I'm the most interested in are actually Taking Flight and Destination Adventure. Taking Flight, just because I think that's going to primarily be about atmospheric control surfaces and what that's going to do to the game. I think that atmospheric control surfaces, but I also think we're going to see the new quantum travel effects and new quantum travel experience.
Jump drive?
I think that's going to be played here. So, that's an important thing. That's how we get around the verse. So I'm excited to see that. And then specifically with Destination Adventure, I'm excited to see these underground facilities. I'm actually kind of excited about those in general from a gameplay perspective. What I hope UGFs are, and I am a little confused on what CIG wants them to be, but what I hope underground facilities are a hub of activities and missions you can go to and take. So for example, I want to be able, if I'm in Pyro and I find a UGF on some moon, I want to land there and have a wide variety of missions I can take from there. Maybe there's FPS combat missions where a mission giver says, hey, we need you to journey down to level 14 way down underground. There's an incursion happening there. We need you to fight off the, whatever. Or hey, we have this stuff that needs to be refined, or this cargo that needs to be transported. I want a bunch of different mission sets to take place at these UGFs, because right now I feel like our missions are primarily just given to us via the Moby Glass, through this UI panel. And I would love to be able to go to a UGF and kind of not knowing what missions are going to be available there, and those mission sets be different based off where the UGF is. CIG seems to have hinted that that's their direction, but they've never been super clear about it, and this sounds like exactly what they're going to talk about, so I'm excited for it.
Imagine having being in a UGF and having an NPC run up to you and say, hey, look, I dropped a ball. I've got an executive that needs to get to Stanton.
Exactly.
And I need you to take him there. Can you please help me out? And you can decide, I'll help you out, or not, shove off.
Love it.
But that kind of emergent gameplay created with NPCs is, to me, exciting. Like that's what I want from
100%.
I also think UGFs could be a really good place for us to finally get really good usage for ground vehicles. So I hope we've seen that a lot in the concept art. We've seen ground vehicles within the UGFs. So I hope that they make that a point. So for example, here's a great example of a UGF needing a ground vehicle. You land at a UGF, let's say you go down 5 levels, and then there's a long tramway tunnel down this, and you got to get to the end of it. It'd be cool if you're able to drive your Cyclone or your Mule or whatever down there. Obviously you can't fly your ship there because it's a UGF facility. This is the best example of vehicle usage that I can think of. Other examples have been used before, like inclement weather, acid rain, stuff like that, but UGFs to me are a great test bed for actually bringing ground vehicles into missions, like making them a requirement. And then add patrols, add alien worms come out of the ground. Like, you absolutely want to be able to strategize that last kilometer it takes to get to the UGF. 100%. Ender, what are you most excited about for day 2?
Honestly, I like the talk about planets that they're going to do. So that Destination Adventure is pretty exciting for me. I think what I'm most excited about is the character advancement. I'm hoping to see certain things, but the one that I'm really going to watch with kind of bated breath is that Destination Adventure, because what I'd like to see is something new. They showed us a lot of Pyro. It'd be interesting to see if they've been working on anything else that they haven't told us they're working on. And then all of a sudden they're showing us that. So I'm watching that with a little bit bated breath to see if we get something that we didn't know we get.
Do y'all think jump drives will be discussed on day 2? Considering it's such a necessity for going through the jump points that are now live in PTU 321. But do y'all think jump drives will be part of the conversation?
I didn't think about that, but honestly, they should be. That conversation should start up again.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think it needs to be discussed. I mean, there's a lot of open-ended questions about jump gates and jump points and stuff that still need to be answered.
Yeah.
And obviously, taking flight is somewhere where that all could be talked about.
Yep.
That kind of stuff could also be talked about in navigating the verse a bit.
Yep.
So we'll see where it shakes out. But yeah, I see jump drives being something that does need to be talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we good to move on to F8C Lightning? Ender, you good?
Yeah.
No one's pushed on time. I want to be respectful.
We're good.
All right. Let's get into the hunt is on. So there's a lot to unpack. With the F8C Lightning. Let's get the facts out of the way. Then we'll get into some of the current debate or dialogue, and then we will open it up for just general conversation. Oh man, how do I even start this? So the F8C Lightning, you could acquire it one of two ways. Prior to this past week, you could acquire it one of two ways. You could become a wing commander and have spent $10,000 on pledging, and then you would get the base model of the F8C Lightning for an additional $5,000, or a total of $15,000 spent on pledging for this game. You would get the Executive Edition, which is a gorgeous black and gold livery that is probably one of the best paint jobs in this game. So those are the two ways. And then there's like a third way that we need to be very delicate with how we talk about it. The third way is a promise, quote unquote. It's a promise that, hey, if you finish Squadron 42, you would be given the F8C. Now, I have heard it say the F8A, the Alpha, and the F8C is in Charlie. Regardless, you would get this if you finish Squadron 42. Okay. Those are the quote-unquote facts up to this point. And then last week happens. Now, you have all read my social medias at this point. You know how I feel about it. They opened it up for the birthday. So we celebrated the 11th birthday of CIG, this endeavor we have set on for Star Citizen. We celebrated it on Tuesday. In one of their celebrations, they sent an email. We talked about it in the last episode. They sent an email to wing commanders and up and said, hey, this is coming down the pipeline. It's going to be an explosive, birthday. And here's an image that you can decipher. And the deciphered image was the F8C Lightning. Well... Enter the debate. They have started a gold ticket and a platinum ticket process where everybody has the ability to pick up the F8C Lightning if they so choose. Let me go on record saying I actually support it. Not every gamer has the time to play the game to earn this gold and platinum status. We'll cover that in a second. And not every gamer has $15,000 or $10,000 to spend on pledging. I am of the mindset where I welcome everybody in the Star Citizen family to get the opportunity to fly this badass ship. There's a lot of lore with the F8C. It's how we combated the scythes, right? The Vandal scythes. It's how it is so much ingrained into what Star Citizen and Squadron 42 is. This was not the ship to gate. And I don't think it ever was. I don't think it was the ship to gate. Because again, they're offering it to everybody who beat Squadron 42. So there's the preface. Let's get into the article. I'll shut up for a couple of seconds afterwards, but here we go. Article. Happy birthday, Star Citizen, blah, blah, blah. The hunt is on. Yeah, there you go. There's the summary. Blah, blah, blah. The hunt is on. Your gold ticket, you go and you play the game, and you can find it in any box. I actually found mine today, about 2 or 3 hours before this podcast, inside of a mercenary mission in Crusader. It was like the first little small 1 SCU gray box when you go down the elevator for a Merc mission. I found it, I got it, turned it in, got access to it, shared it on socials, whatever. You have the ability of unlocking the chance to buy it on the pledge store. All right. It's no difference than like the Pirate Edition Gladius or the Pirate Edition Caterpillar, right? Like you have the ability to buy it.
Right.
$300 for a 6-month LTI that you can melt up to, or $260 for lifetime insurance. That's war bond, which means new money. So they're making money.
Yeah.
And my buddy Paul, the astro historian, showed a very good image that they are making their money. Like there is a very steep incline of profit since doing this event. So there's that. But here's the debatable piece, and this is where I'll shut up. There's a platinum ticket that if you defeat a developer, which, by the way, let me pause. Such a freaking phenomenal idea. This was such a great idea. The marketing execution of it, the idea that I'm going to pursue Glaxtica or Jake Acapella or Jared Huckabee or Tyler Whitkin. Like, I'm going to pursue your ass. I'm going to kill you so I can get this platinum ticket. It is such a great idea. But you go, you kill them, you get this platinum ticket, you turn it in, and you're going to get it for free with LTI. And I think that is what is crossing the line for some people. You spend 10,000 real life USD, real life dollars, but now in this month of birthday celebration, you could get it for free with the platinum ticket. So let me shut up. I think I've summarized this as best as I could. Add, delete anything you want to, Grim and Ender. But I would love to hear y'all's reactions to anything that I may have discussed about the F8C Lightning.
Well, I guess I can start. I still think I'm kind of like absorbing some of the information and listening to what's being said in the community to sort of fully formulate an opinion. Because I'm sort of right in the middle of it, where I think it was a really cool idea, and if the idea was to sell the F8C and to get people playing in game, it accomplished that. I'll give you a good example.
Absolutely.
I haven't done bunkers in a while because they've just been buggy. I go down there, the AI is acting weird, whatever. So it's been a while since I've done them. Yep. But it got me back out into a bunker, and I actually had a little fun. You know, I mean, it wasn't totally working great. I had some server lag and stuff going on because the servers are getting hammered, but I actually had a pretty good time. And so it accomplished the goal of getting me to do something that I hadn't been doing for a while. I think that's always good for Star Citizen promotions. And then 2, I found a golden ticket, Wonka style, and then I ended up melting a ship to get the F8C. So Absolutely. It got me to buy an F8C, not with new money, but it still got me to make that purchase. Yep. So in terms of promotion, wildly successful. Completely agree with you. Great idea. However, I think it's always tricky when you attempt to do anything that could either rightfully or wrongfully be portrayed as favorable to some and not favorable to others, I guess is a good way of putting it.
Oh, what a line. I love it.
Yeah, and I really have not read into all the information that's out there to see, you know, if any of these accusations I'm seeing out there are true, and a lot of the things that are kind of irritating people. I think there was a lot of different ways to do this, though. For example, the developers, maybe it wasn't a ship, but maybe you would have gotten access to exclusive paints by taking certain developers down, but maybe developers weren't the only ways to get those things. So for example, one way I think, or one thing that they could have done that I think would have mitigated some of this controversy is if the platinum cards were also able to be found in loot boxes like the gold, but they were extremely rare. Like think of like getting a 1% drop in WoW. Right? So for any World of Warcraft players in there, you know, any item that's kind of generically got the 1% drop rate, you might farm that thing 80 times before it drops. You know what I mean?
You might get it first. Who knows?
You might get it the first. I think that would have been an interesting way, or a better way of doing it than having this platinum version exclusively through getting a developer. Again, my personal opinion. but again, taking it still, I'm still taking it all in. I think from a top level view, though, I think this was a really fun event,
Yes.
and I love them experimenting a bit.
Yeah.
For me, I looked at this as a little bit of an experimentation on ship selling, sort of like the Kraken's concept sale originally was back in 2018, where you had to write like people that were interested in buying had to write like a story about how you would use the Kraken, and that would be what got you into the next line of like selection, because it was so limited. Yeah, you had to write like a little essay. I think it was they literally required you to write an essay explaining how you would use the ship in your org or whatever. And I'm not even saying that that's a good way to go about it, or that the F8 is a good way to go, but they're experimenting and they're trying to see, hey, how can we make this just something a little different than ship pledge pages up? You know what I mean? Like, what can we do here, to do something, but I don't know. I think that, was that after the waves, Mud Dog? Yeah. So I think that also, I am against any sort of things that limits the amount of money CIG could possibly make off of ship sales. And the reason I'm against that is, while CIG it seems like they made a ton of money with their 600 million raised, talking to many friends in the game development industry that work at AAA studios, Ender knows I know quite a few that are very high level at very big studios, Bethesda included. $600 is not going to, or $600 million is not going to cut it for the long-term survivability of Star Citizen. They need to generate a lot more money and sustainable money. So I'm personally of the mind, whatever they can do to make money, do it. So I'm fine that the F8 was sold to people, that they gave you the opportunity to buy it. It doesn't bother me, but maybe there's ways to fix that in the future to where it causes less, I think, hurt feelings.
So I'm in the same boat Grim is in. I'm taking in a lot of information, still learning things about that other side. You mentioned something. You said, Galactica or Jacob Capella could be out in the verse, and that's who you're taking it from. I don't agree with that. I think that, honestly, the community team in general shouldn't be a part of that kind of competition, because there's too much chance, and you're leaving a lot of people, and it's been said, there's too much chance that favoritism is going to happen. Not that it has,
because of their ties to the community already.
Because of their ties to the community already. And so I think taking that out of the equation and making it just the game devs, you know what I mean? Not only are you getting to interact with somebody who is actively developing this game for a short period of time, but you're also taking the community out of it, and you're making it so that people can't go, well, they're playing favorites. Look at who's already got it. I haven't even seen this. Why do they have it? And you take that out completely right away.
Well, let me go on record.
I do know some devs were playing, like actual
I do know devs are playing. I'm just saying, in general, we shouldn't have the community team as part of.
It's interesting,
I want to be very clear and articulate here. I actually don't know which devs do and which devs don't. I can't say that the community team, which in some studios are considered developers, and sometimes they're not. So I just want to be very clear with the listeners and the viewers. I actually don't know if Galactica and Jacob Capella, Tyler Wicken. I actually don't know that.
That's why I mentioned that I'm still taking in information, because I
same
don't
here
know either. But in general, I do think that they should be separate from those competitions.
And
I agree.
Go on.
Well,
I was going to
say, I agree with sort of what Texas is saying in chat, and that the F8A, I think, would have been a better option for the concierge, to be totally honest with you, like the $10,000 backers. Look, they're supporting the game in a major way. And when a lot of people like to use the words, whale and concierge and stuff, but what they really should be called, and I hate to say this, we're all collectively part of this, but we're the funders of this game. We're the investors of this project. That's a better way of saying it. And some investors have invested $45. They're still investors.
Yep.
There's some investors that have invested $50,000, $100,000.
Yeah.
Just like in the stock market, if you invest into a stock, if you've invested $50 or $100,000, the $100,000 investor should probably get a little bit more, more return on their investment. I think that's totally fine in this era of the game where it's still, and all these pledges are still an investor sort of money transaction, right?
Yeah.
And not really a sustaining transaction. So just thinking of it in terms of just money that needs to be raised to support the game, I think it would have been a great idea to give the concierge FAAs, the military variant.
I agree.
It's
or even give the concierge people who have earned those 2 ships, put a platinum ticket in their, in their inventory. Give them that platinum ticket. Let them but that platinum ticket, instead of being the F7C with a different paint job, which, if I'm being honest, I prefer the current paint job. I'm good with that one over the platinum one. But if they'd have made that platinum ticket in F7A, and it's going to be just as rare and difficult to get, then I think that would have been much better. But I think they should have given one to those concierge levels who spent 10 and 15 grand to get those.
I'll say this though, to kind of close out my thoughts on this. If this whole experimentation that they're doing to try to find interesting ways to promote the game, promote these highly sought after ships, make some money, which they should always be doing. They're a business. They need to be making money to be a responsible business.
How dare you?
Exactly. Taking all that into account, but still considering this experimenting on how to do this, I'd rather them experiment on these single seat fighters, these $200, $300 ships. I don't want them experimenting on the Idris. Nope. I don't want them making the Idris come out and the people that have invested $1,600 into getting an Idris and then experimenting with some random way anyone can get an Idris because you're a content creator or because you have a huge org that can help you seek out every loot box in the verse, all these ways you can get around it. I would rather them do these experiments on these smaller ships. And I think that's how I look at it. I think it allows them to think of much better ways to promote when not only bigger ships come out, but especially hull limited ships, because you can bet your ass when ships like the Kraken and Idris come out that are hull limited ships. This has always been a concern of mine when Star Citizen. Take a ship like the Kraken. When they finally put the Kraken into active production, they are building a ship and putting all these time and resources into a ship that doesn't have many owners because it's hull limited.
That's right.
They're going to open it up. Right. Yeah. There's going to be some promotion that happens with the Kraken and some of those bigger hull limited ships that allow them to get in more players' hands. Right. And this is that time for them to start experimenting with crazy promotions to sort of do that. You know what I mean? And we should be somewhat okay with that, because for example, if they've only sold total 800 Krakens because of all the limited waves over the last 5 years or whatever, or maybe it's 200 Krakens. I don't know how many it is. I don't know what the magic number is of sold ships to get them to want to even put the time and resources and overhead into producing that ship.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't really give a damn what that number is, but I want them to hit that number because I want my ship. You know what I mean? So I don't want it to. I don't want it to sit on the shelves at CIG just because there's not enough people that own it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I am okay, for example, as a Kraken owner, I am okay when the Kraken releases, them coming up with some sort of promotion, maybe a little different than this F8 one, but some sort of promotion that allows it to get into more people's hands in a fair way.
Yeah, I think a good example, for listeners, viewers of this podcast, maybe you're new to Star Citizen, but like the Javelin is $3,000. There's not a lot of people that have spent $3,000 on video games their entire lifetime, much less on one game. So if you're going into this with the premise that, you know, the only way to get a javelin is with $3,000 and pledging $3,000, that's probably not going to be the case. Why would a company spend time, resources, assets to build a $3,000 ship if only those that can afford it with real money buy it? So set your expectation that there's going to be a way to earn it. Now, it might be super rare, it might be super hard, it might be the 1% loot box that Grim and Ender were talking about. It might be this random, like the invincible horse that the Lich King rode in on in World of Warcraft. Like, it might be this like very impossible thing to like loot, but expect there to be a way that most gamers have the chance.
Yeah.
Right? Like, imagine a 18-year-old wanting to fly the javelin. They don't have $3,000 to spend on getting this, or the Idris, which is I think like $1,500 or whatever it is.
I think it's 1,400.
Yeah, something like
something
that.
Like that.
Kraken is somewhere up there as well, 3,000 or 2,000. So anyways, the point being is like, I would just set your expectations. Like the F8C, to Grim's point, was a phenomenal example of like, look, we need to get this in more hands. It's a paramount fundamental ship to the lore, to the foundation of what Star Citizen is. Let's just see what happens. And I think the ticket system was a phenomenal way to do it. I truly do. We can debate whether or not, so this is to Ender's point, I have to do my own research because I'm seeing people sell the gold tickets and sell.
There's a lot of selling going on.
Right? Like, well, that doesn't feel right. Like
it
that,
doesn't.
Right?
On
So like
eBay, I think
on eBay.
On eBay right now, I think gold tickets are listed for about $60 a piece.
Right, like that needs to be ironed out. You should not be able to get an Idris, because of a $50 ticket.
Grim mentioned something. We were talking about that exact thing. Grim mentioned something earlier about things being soul bound the way that they are in World of Warcraft, where they're account bound. You can't even pass them character to character.
Yes. Yes.
They're soul bound to you. So I think that's definitely something that they should do in the future. I shouldn't be able to hand my ticket over. I've seen a lot of people just giving away tickets, and I approve of that wholeheartedly. Sure. Be able to give your ticket away in game and not sell it somehow.
Sure.
You know what I mean? There should be a way.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of funny. I even was thinking that because I'm usually against soulbound items. Like I actually don't like it in WoW. You know what I mean? I want to be able to just trade and sell everything on my whim. But things related to real money transaction, like promotional stuff like this, I could see an argument for soulbound tickets, for example.
I just don't think people should be making $60 off of it.
Yeah, I
do
just
your side
eBay.
hustle, but don't.
Yeah, I just checked eBay while we're
100%.
talking. There's probably about 25 to 30 on there, and they range from lowest I've seen is 45, and the highest I've seen is like 90 to 100.
It doesn't feel right.
Those 90 to 100 just need to take that stuff off of eBay and then start selling feed pictures. Like they're gonna make
open an OnlyFans.
Get your side hustle. Do something a little better. But don't. I personally think that selling those is really a disservice to the people who could earn them. Like, why are you paying $60 when you can go in the game?
And remember,
and get it.
Two important points to remember too. One is that they've tried out kind of strange promotions ahead of ship sales before. They had that time where they sort of gave out, was it the Star Runner, where they gave ships to the PTU to like popular streamers and stuff. It was a Star Runner ahead, and they gave them ahead of the people that had pledged for the ships in the PTU. It was a disaster, and they got a lot of bad press for it, and they haven't done it since. They learned from that mistake, right? Now, is there an argument to be made that they should have known that was going to happen? Maybe. But regardless, they haven't made the mistake again. I look at this the same way. Hopefully they experimented, they tried something, maybe they'll learn from some things they didn't like about it. Maybe next year they will be soulbound, who knows? Or maybe they just like, you know what, this went exactly as planned. The last point I'll make is I know there's a lot of controversy going on right now in that were Star Citizen developers and or CMs deliberately targeting big streamers streams in order to generate views.
Yeah.
It's possible. I really don't have all the information to make that claim or not make that claim. And even if it is true, I still don't know if I think it's good or bad, because as someone who's worked in marketing for going on 24 years now, I can tell you that's just marketing nowadays. It's targeting influencers, targeting streamers. It's being done by every brand in every business sector in the world, from cosmetics to movie reviews to headphone every single thing is targeting streamers, influencers, people that play the game, whatever. So no matter what your viewpoint is on that, that's just how marketing is done now. And I'm not saying I'm pro or against it. I'm part of the marketing industry. I've had to kind of go along with it, but we should all get used to that, because it ain't going anywhere.
Right.
That is just how marketing works. It would actually be irresponsible if CIG was not doing that from a marketing perspective and targeting those content creators, because that is how marketing is done. And you see it in every single game. World of Warcraft is doing drops now. Streamers can do drops, right? Drops have become a huge thing. Many other games are doing it. Starfield was giving out early release copies to streamers because they knew those streamers would build up the game. It's just how things are done in marketing now. It's not CIG's fault. It's the marketing industry's fault. So if you have any issues with that approach, it's more of an issue with how marketing is done today, not specifically CIG.
Yep.
It's a really good call out. It's a really good call out. I'm actually going to wrap this up. We're at the 2-hour mark. So first off, we're not live, or we're not recording a podcast next week. So this is perfect. 2 episodes in one. And what
part 1, part 2.
That's right. And what greater, like, I am in the presence of juggernauts, and I want to say thank you to both Grim and Ender. Thank you so much for being part of this show, part of the endeavor, part of the conversation, part of my onboarding into Star Citizen as I've been able to play with the tools and get into what y'all have created. So I want to say with a sincere thank you for what you have done for this community and what you continue and will do for the community. So thank you so much. And with that, any last words from our 2 special guests? Grim, anything?
I would just say thanks for having us on.
Absolutely.
Star Jump is all about making connections with other people on the content creation side and just the general community side that share our same ethos and friendly approach to others, are welcoming. We very much are welcoming to new people coming into the game and newbies, as it were. So anyone that is front facing like that's really trying to be a positive influence on the community are people we want to be connected with. And Beyond the Verse is a show that I've been watching for a while. I've already told you that, and I knew from the get-go, we definitely need to link up with you at some point. So it's been fun to be on.
Means the world to me. Means the world. Ender, any last words?
Keep an eye on Star Jump.
Let's
in the
go.
future, I think we've got some big stuff coming out, but also, keep an eye on Beyond the Verse, because haven't seen it, if this is your first episode, don't pay attention to me and Grim here. It's actually a really great show. So,
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
But yeah.
So for those patrons who are listening and watching Beyond the Verse, and this is your 28th episode with us, who may not know who Star Jump is, or if they want more of Grim or more of Ender, Grim, where can they find more of Star Jump or you as an individual content creator? Where can they find you on the socials?
Yeah, so definitely go to YouTube and just type Star Jump. We are going to come up probably the first thing, or type Star Jump Star Citizen. We will definitely come up. Yeah. We have cinematics on there. We have Star Jump Station Show, which is a discussion show. We have Fleet Builders. We have our Star Jump Shipyard episodes, which deep dive ships. Go check that out. Excuse me. Me and Ender also stream. So you can catch us both on Twitch. Obviously, I am StarJump_Grim on Twitch. We also have a Twitter. It's just at StarJump, at StarJump.org on Twitter. Follow us on there. I do a lot of like our latest posts and stuff right through there. So yeah.
Yeah. Ender?
Like Grim said, I stream on Twitch, so twitch.tv underscore or starjump underscore ender. Sorry. But definitely go to YouTube, like Grim said.
Yeah.
Grim has done an amazing job. He's downplaying it right now, but he's done a really amazing job on those cinematics that he has put out.
Yeah.
I know he's currently doing work on another one, so definitely take a look at those. But take a look at the other shows that we do as well. I think.
And I would say try to follow all of our channels if you can,
Absolutely.
because we do put out different content on different channels. So, for example, on Ender's Twitch is where all of the charity stuff goes through. He does a big charity push in is it March and April, Ender, or is it April?
March and April and November.
In November.
I do November, and then I do St. Jude Play Live.
Yeah, so big charity pushes, obviously Star Jump related, but really headed up completely by Ender. So, all that's on that channel. Other stuff happen on my channel. Different things are put out onto YouTube. So try to follow us on all our platforms to get kind of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like I said, true blessing. Again, if it's your first time listening to Beyond the Verse, follow us on all things social. It's BTV_cast. You can email us at contact@beyondtheversehq.com to become part of the conversation. Otherwise, I hope this finds every single one of you well. Safe travels as you traverse Beyond the Verse. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.